Welcome back to Living Local. So we are back with Charles Bryant, who you know as the Living Local videographer, but today he's wearing a different hat as filmmaker extraordinaire of Atalaya, the history of the Watchtower. And if you're like me and you always have pronounced it Atalaya, I forgive you because I had to be corrected. I've always said it like this, and then I watched the documentary and realized my whole life is a lie. So we are back. We've been watching some of the history, and we're going to continue. So hope you enjoy.
Living in the Northeast during the winter was not a very good place for anyone who suffered with tuberculosis in the 20s and 30s. And so Anna's doctors suggested that she find a more milder temperature climate during the harsh winters that the Northeast has. And so Archer and Anna began looking for hunt clubs in the South. They both, besides their art, really loved wildlife. They really wanted to protect as much wildlife as they could for future generations. Anna and Archer bought 6,200 acres in 1930, and Archer began building Atalaya. The building of Atalaya was solely completed in Archer's head.
There was not a single blueprint or drawing, not even a sketch on the back of a cocktail napkin, as far as we're able to tell, of the design of Atalaya. This is very much a product of Archer's imagination. He would get an idea and he would convey that verbally to the head of his construction crew. They would put them into work, and Archer may come by the next week or two to inspect progress. And sometimes he liked what they did, and sometimes he didn't. And if he didn't, they would just have them tear it down and they would start over again. So over the course of its construction, Atalaya, truth be known, was actually built, torn down, and rebuilt several times. Now, this may sound kind of crazy in today's world, but the truth of it is Archer was simply trying to keep the men employed as long as possible during a very rough time in our nation's history.
Mr. Chandler was the head contractor for building Atalaya, and one really cool thing that he said that we have through diaries is, "Mr. Huntington, if you were to tell me a little bit more, I would know what you're wanting to build." So the people that were building this building did not have any advanced training or knowledge of how to build something this grand. Most of them had not left South Carolina, so when he was explaining about the castles and fortresses that he saw along the Spanish coast, that's what he was wanting to build. They really had nothing to pull from. The masons, when they were building the first brick walls, they were doing, the best squaring that they could and wiping off all the extra mortar to try to have a very crisp, very neat wall. Well, when Mr. Huntington came in and saw the first wall, he tried to explain to them what slump joint mortar was, and that's exactly what he saw along the Spanish Mediterranean coast. And that is the type of architecture where you pretty much leave the mortar on the outside of the brick. So it's kind of like the mortar is oozing between the bricks.
And Archer wanted it for a couple different reasons. One, so that it would provide purchase for the creeping fig vines they intended to grow on the interior walls. Also, so they could mortar the outside of the building to give it that kind of fortress wall look that he was going for. Atalaya is actually an old Spanish term for watchtower, and it refers to this structure right behind me, which is the centerpiece of the courtyard of Atalaya. Now, the original inspiration for the watchtower were watchtowers that Archer Huntington had seen during his travels as a young man along the coast of Spain. So he kind of modeled his watchtower after real-life watchtowers that were originally intended to keep a coastal lookout for pirates. However, in 1930 South Carolina, pirates weren't that big of an issue. So it turns out Archer Huntington's watchtower had some more practical issues in mind. First, it was actually, in reality, a water tower. Originally at the very top there was a large cypress tank that they could pump water into, and that would provide gravity-fed water pressure for the building.